I started about 8 years ago. That's when I started. I think that's the way it is for all mitzvot. A lot of the things we think we can't do, really they are possible for us if we try it out and see if we can do it and learn and find a teacher and help us with it and work at it, and little by little you can do more than you think you can do. This is the mantle with the dedications. And this part here is known as the gartel. It's like a belt. And this part here is called the Atzei Chayim. This is the poles that hold it. In the Ashkenazic tradition, we use these poles like this, and the Torah is rolled. And when the Torah is finished, it will be tied up. There's a blank column. I have this temporarily sewed to the end. This is the end of the book of Numbers, Midbar, until I sew the book of Devarim in. So now I can. This allows me to unroll and roll. So I'll show you what it looks like here. Give you an idea of how it's sewn in. So I have room for the book of Devarim, which I'll sew in a week or two. I was born in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, and so I remember when I was a little boy, about 8, I could see the Hasidim from the Lubavitcher Rebbe walking down President Street. I always wondered who they were, but I didn't know who they were at that time. Later, when I went to medical school in Brooklyn, downstate, my first 2 years of medical school, I decided to check it out, and I went down. And I was very impressed with Chabad, and so it was very inspiring to me. And then during my medical education, I became a psychiatrist, and more or less I lived the life of a secular Jew, but I knew always there was a part of me that knew there was something in the Torah that kept calling to me. But I probably felt it was too hard to keep all the mitzvot, and like most American Jews, I was focusing on raising a family and making a living, all that kind of stuff. Maybe about 13 years ago, I found that there was a Chabad near my house. I've been here for many years. I met Rabbi Blooming. Rabbi Blooming studied Rashi, studying the Rashi's interpretations of the discourse and explaining the simple meaning of the text in the Torah. As time went on, I learned more about it. I met some people who were writing Torah, and I saw the Torah scroll, and I was very amazed how holy it was. And I saw the letters, and I was actually always interested in the Hebrew letters, even as a young man. But I decided that I wanted to learn how to write, and so I found a sofer who was willing to teach me, and I became an apprentice to him. This is about, I would say, about 9-10 years ago. And he told me that I should first write mezuzot. So I wrote mezuzot. So first he told me I should write the Megillah Esther, the book of Esther, because it doesn't have the name of God written in it overtly. So I wrote a Megillah Esther. He told me how to practice writing the letters. He gave me the books. So I read the books, and I read about the halacha, and he showed me how to make letters. And after I finished the Megillah, he then said, now you're ready to write a mezuzah. So I wrote about 10 mezuzot, and I have 1 or 2 in my house here, and others I've given away to people getting married and things like that. I gave it to my family, and so and then once I finished writing those number of mezuzot, he says I was ready to do the Sefer Torah. This is the last column in the Sefer Torah. It's column 245. It's in the Parsha Zot HaBracha. and I'm finishing the 5th line of that last column. Before I start writing, I say a prayer, and I give money to tzedakah, my tzedakah box, and periodically I empty that tzedakah box and give to charity, because every act of Torah should be linked to another mitzvah. Shiviti ananai lenekti tamid. Yehi ratzon mefanecha anai lahavaltai. Shetishre shchinatcha v'maaseh yadai v'datlichini v'sofas dam v'gadivadi zor shenei katev sefer Torah zu. Af. Aleph. Rish. The Torah is not so far beyond us. Here, a member of your congregation, I was just an ordinary member of the synagogue. I actually was able to go and learn the rules on how to do this, and I did it. So it's not done by magicians somewhere in Safat, in the mountains in Israel. You know, I mean, really, live people do this, and they pass it around, and that's how we do them as far as the ordinary people like us. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold, this is the tikkun. This is actually a photocopy of the Sofer's tikkun. This is what the Sofer's tikkun looks like. Sofer's tikkun is a book, and each line is numbered. And so I photocopy that so that it exactly matches the width of this line. Notice the way I lay out the columns here. The way I did it is I wrote the names of God beforehand in the page, so that it will, and I measured it by using the tikkun, the Sofer's tikkun, and each column is numbered. This is the 245th and the last column, and each line is numbered. And the way I make sure that I know what the number of the line is, I have these celluloid plastic strips that I tape down next to the column, so I know exactly what line I'm on. Like this is the 6th line, and then when I'm finished that column, I'll take these off and I'll put them on the next column. First, I started off wanting to understand the Torah, get close to the Torah, but then I realized, if you're getting close to the Torah, you're getting close to the author of the Torah, who is Hashem. When God created us, He had to give us free will. If He didn't give us free will, we would just be robots. It would be like a cosmic puppet show. And He didn't want that, apparently. Apparently He didn't want a cosmic puppet show. If He wanted, He has the angels and they do whatever His bidding is. But He made human beings so that we wouldn't even see Him. He would be hidden from us. And so that we could pretend that we are like God and we can do whatever we want. And of course, most of the problems of the world today has to do with people thinking like that. From the top to the bottom, from the leaders of the nations of the world, who think that they can do everything they want, and even from ordinary people who they pick on other people who are lesser than them. They act like gods. It's possible that even with all the over 300,000 letters in a Sefer Torah, that there's going to be errors. God forbid if you make a mistake in writing God's name, there's no correction if you actually misspell it right or you write it in the wrong order. And you have to bury that sheet. It has to be buried. That's a way of dignifying, a way of not, you can't use it. Regular words and letters in the Torah, it doesn't have to be written in order, and you can correct it if you make a mistake. Again, I'm going to erase some more. Each line contains something that's applicable to our daily life, you see. Like keeping the Sabbath. Keeping the Sabbath is a good example, because one of the things that when I was praying to Hashem to ask Him to help me to help me be able to get closer to Him, the first thing that I had a thought come into my mind. He says, "Keep my Sabbath." The Torah can be written with a reed or a quill of a kosher animal, like a turkey, which is what we use. And when I clean them up, they look something like this. And it's amazing to see how the ink goes, because it's really like, that ink is very thick, and it's almost like you're carving with a liquid. When I've done all 4 columns, I attach this and I plug it into my computer, put it in the USB port, record the image, and then I email the image to Rabbi Seabag in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, who checks it for me. Harninu goyim amo, sing nations the praises of his people. At that time, the nations will praise Israel, saying, "Look, see what the excellent feature of this nation is, that they cleaved to the Holy One, blessed be He, through all the travails that passed over them, and did not abandon Him. They knew even then of His goodness and His excellence." And then the final phrase, "For He will avenge the blood of His servants." If you do things in this world before you have the holiness, then the things you do may not be so kosher. And they may not always, you may have the right mind to it. You may have the idea that, oh, I want to do good for people and I want to be helpful to people. But if you don't know how to do it, and if you don't know that sometimes you have to enter your spiritual realm where you learn what is God really expects of human beings, then you know better how to do good. When I decided to write the Torah, I decided I was going to write it and give it to the Chabad in Potomac, Synagogue of Potomac, Shul of Potomac, and because we need another Torah scroll, and I'm looking forward to be able to read from the Torah on Shabbat, or even on Monday and Thursday. And so in a way, my life parallels that of the Jewish people. You know, I'm like one of the Jews who finally wised up thank God, after all these years, I finally got the idea, I got the message. So I'm very thankful to Hashem that he stuck with me.